Okay, so perfect. So Shilpa started off by saying that Meritage Homes and I, who are responsible for our innovations within Meritage Homes, have gathered a number of bumps and bruises, and that is absolutely true. So with the 45 minutes I've got, I want to walk through the lessons we've learned, the why we do what we do, what are the risks, what are the costs, what are the innovative technologies, and more importantly, my role within Meritage is to help the industry move forward towards its potential. And so as you have questions, please do go ahead and type them in, and we've set it up where they'll just jump in and ask questions and have a dialogue, because I certainly can't quite cover all the mistakes I've made in 45 minutes, but I'll be very happy if someone out there has very specific questions about challenges and opportunities and the details as you get into zero net energy. I'll be very happy to cover that. In starting off, if you're not familiar with Meritage Homes, we are one of the top 10 largest home builders. We build for Orlando and San Francisco. And 3 years ago for Earth Day, we announced that we would build zero net energy homes for anybody who wants it in any community we build in. So for the last 3 years, we've had an option to build zero net energy that sat on top of our energy efficiency program, and about 10% of the population in an average community opts to add renewable energy to our included energy efficiency programs, and about 10% of them have opted to build all the way to zero. So we've built about 100 zero net energy homes, and a lot of the things we'll talk about today as we go through it will be the who, what's, when, where, and why of what we've done well and what we've really not done well and what we've learned from those opportunities. The key, and perhaps not to the participants on this call, but the average person in America today doesn't think that there's anything broken with our homes. It's something they grew up in, their parents grew up in, they flip a switch, a light comes on, they set a thermostat, it becomes the temperature they want it to be, and they're not aware that they could have more. And so much of what I want to talk about is in translating zero net energy as a concept. It's not hard to do, and we shouldn't, as an industry, make getting to ZNE difficult. What we need to really be focusing on is making it understood, and that's where the opportunities and the challenges are. For those of you on the call, I would assume that you're leaning into this as an issue because you understand that buildings are the largest consumer of energy. They consume 40% of the energy and raw materials in the United States, more than all transportation, all trucks on the road, all cars on the road, all trains combined. Buildings consume more energy than anything else, and the really difficult thing is they don't make good use of it. Over 50% of the energy they consume, there's no beneficial end result to it. It's truly waste. And creating an energy efficient building and then starting to leverage renewable energy and starting to leverage strategies towards zero really helps not only reduce waste, it helps improve the function of the building so it's more comfortable and more healthy. It starts reducing load shape on utilities. So utilities, there was a study that came out in July of 2009 about the peak energy demand of buildings wasting $1.2 trillion in additional utility infrastructure just because we're not well insulated and we don't leverage good windows. And the opportunity, therefore, for ZNE is to really substantively translate ZNE into benefits. And the fundamentals, like I said, let's not make ZNE hard, let's make it understood. The fundamentals really come down to reduce before you renew. And that's becoming trite, and I'm glad it's becoming trite because I can make a barn zero net energy. If I put enough solar panels on top of it, I can balance its demand with production. But that's not the best thing to do for the function of that building, nor is it the most cost-effective thing to do. So the first thing you want to do is take that 50% of energy that's wasted and fix that as a building. And as we go through this presentation, I'll make sure that I provide resources and examples of how you do that really cost effectively to get to the point where renewable energy makes sense, and then you can leverage that renewable energy all the way to ZNE. So simple things like efficient appliances, efficient insulation, good windows, sealing the home so the HVAC system that's running so hard doesn't leak right back out in 20 minutes are pretty fundamental ways to drastically reduce the energy demand of a house. And there's great resources for that, from the U.S. EPA's Energy Star from Homes programs to the U.S. Department of Energy's Challenge Home program to all sorts of NGOs that advocate for energy efficiency and can provide tools to create energy efficiency. And it's funny for me because even at the beginning of this call, you hear people calling it net zero energy, zero net energy, carbon neutral. The first thing in making ZNE simple is understanding what it is and what it can be. Throughout the United States, there's seasonality, and so the energy demand of a building to heat and cool and light and run appliances is much greater in peak summer heat and much greater in peak winter cold than it's going to be in moderate spring and fall climates throughout North America. And so achieving zero definitionally doesn't mean that it's zero all the time, because to design a home that's efficient and has sufficient renewable energy to make enough energy to offset the most energy you'll need at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in August to offset that entire heating and cooling load and electricity and utilities and lifestyle means you'll produce a tremendous surplus of energy the remainder of the year. And that surplus provides potential benefits in offsetting other people's peak, but also challenges as ZNE gets adopted into where is that surplus going to go and how can the utility start leveraging renewable energy with grid-produced and non-dispersed energy sources. And so a lot of achieving zero is about let's offset a particular building, a particular site, and start looking at that to balance the utility loads, to balance the community loads, to balance the municipality loads. As I said, the trite phrase of reduce before you renew is because it costs less to put in good windows and high SEER-rated HVAC than it does to buy a solar panel for the same equivalent kilowatts. And so the ability to get to ZNE becomes a really simple cost-benefit analysis. What's the cheapest way to reduce a kilowatt of demand? And using simple software like BOPT or ResNet or other energy tubes that any energy or tools that an energy consultant can leverage, a builder or an architect or consultant, allows you to say, here's my energy demand, what are the things that I can do to start pushing and understanding the kilowatt demands and what things most cost effectively reduce that to the point where the last thing left is renewable energy. And that allows you to really get to an efficient thermal envelope, an efficient operating building that cost effectively can get to zero. And that's always been the challenge. Is 3 years ago when Meritage really focused on creating ZNE, the challenge wasn't it couldn't be done. The challenge was could it be done so the average consumer, a 38-year-old mother of 3, could perceive and receive true substantive value. And the answer is yes, it absolutely exists. The only challenge today is those buyers sophisticated enough to make it understood and to make those choices. Beyond that, there's great opportunities to think about design, whether it's passive house and using the diurnal shifts in temperatures, using southern and northern and eastern facing faces to gain heat in northern climates and to hide from heat in southern climates, to really use the building to reduce heating and cooling costs, as well as really start using technology to understand what is affectionately referred by utilities as the duck curve, that there's this peak energy demand in the afternoon from peak heating and cooling loads and lights and lifestyle that solar doesn't fully offset. There's this 4 o'clock peak where the sun's going down where there's not enough solar production to offset the demand. And in those load shapes, through smart controls, smart appliances, thermal mass that allows your building to absorb and hold your air conditioning better, those can start creating opportunities so that renewable energy and load shape become synergistic and in sync so that utilities aren't straddled with this huge peak that instead of it being a 4-hour peak becomes a 40-minute peak, but they still have that energy demand. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through this. But the most important thing we get to when we start talking about zero is zero is the top of the mountain, and that's the direction we want to go. The question is why do we want to go? And hopefully I've touched a little bit about that in the huge waste and burden that inefficient homes place on society, place on our economics, place on individual disposable income. But also, what do we need to get there? And I'll spend the rest of the talk talking about those steps and where are we now? You know, where are we now in the paradigm of getting to zero? Are we halfway there, or have we just started to put a toe in the pond? And the good answer is from my estimation, we're halfway there. The technology, the understanding, the resources all exist, and the last piece of it is this slide, which is how do people choose the homes and the buildings they live in or they occupy for business? And when it comes to homes, people buy what they understand and they're comfortable with and are reinforced by the process. And so for the last 50 years, people have bought on location, design, and cost effectiveness, price per square foot. And some, you know, they're sophisticated enough to understand value, that I'm going to pay a little more per square foot for the bigger yard, for the prettier countertops, for the better appliances. But it comes down to the fact that the functioning of a home, the energy efficiency of a home, the cost to operate that home hasn't traditionally been a differentiator from buyers. And so to get people to start buying Z&E, we need them to start buying with a fourth variable. Within all of these things, location, floor plan, and price, can you sort all those homes that meet those three criteria into good, right? Look, there's a roof. Look, there's a window. Look, it's got a thermostat. Better, it's got an efficient appliance. It's got LED lights. It's got good insulation. And best, it's been designed to reduce holistically, systematically the energy demand of the home. It's got renewable energy, and it can save me $120,000 over a 30-year mortgage in energy costs. Those are the type of sophisticated choices that allow people to choose Z&E, not because it's good for the planet, because it's good for them. It's a selfish choice to get a better home. And as we look, the indices for the sophistication of that average consumer are really reinforcing the decision to invest in moving towards zero net energy. If you ask a customer why the reasons they would buy a green home or an efficient home or a sustainable home, the overwhelming answer is they're looking to save money. It's not they're looking to save polar bears. It's not that they understand global climate change. Some do, right? There's some people that are looking to reduce the impact they have on the environment. But the good news is, regardless of your politics, your socioeconomics, and your environmental activism, everybody wants the best of the homes they're looking at to buy to live in for their family, to be healthier, to be more comfortable, to be safer, and to cost less money to operate. And zero net energy is that peak of the mountain where, if you do it right, it represents the most cost-effective month-to-month operation of the home, where you may have a slightly higher mortgage to have invested in better windows and better appliances and a renewable energy system, but that is much less in mortgage, as is the savings that you've eliminated and significantly reduced your operating cost in both maintenance and in utilities. And you're starting to see that in the simple things about people understanding that it's more than just pretty. And that's a challenge for home builders, because people buy pretty. It's an emotional decision to buy a home. But you're starting to see that people are looking for low-E windows and Energy Star appliances and programmable thermostats, things that don't change the aesthetics, but that spark, that seed of a better choice allows me to get more comfort, reduced utility cost. You know, the EPA has done such a good job with their Energy Star logo, with refrigerators and with washing machines, in understanding I can save $40 a month if I choose this washing machine, because it's going to use half the water and half the electricity but my clothes are going to be just as clean, if not cleaner. That people are starting to understand that the function underneath the pretty is important. And for people that build homes and sell homes and design homes, this just came out the end of last year that this is a really statistically appropriate survey of new home buyers saying what's important to you. That's the first and second thing. And finally, we're starting to see energy efficiency as a primary choice in buying a new home. That people are understanding that if they're going to buy a new home, it's their opportunity to get it built right, to really achieve significant reductions. And as I said, it's not as difficult and as daunting as I think we have made it. Zero net energy is understanding what consumes energy and eliminating the waste and then offsetting the residual demand. So better insulation and better windows reduces heating and cooling costs. Better appliances reduces appliances and refrigeration. LED CFL lights drastically reduce lighting efficiencies, right? You can get Energy Star stickers on computers, electronics. You can cut the demand for operating a home's energy in half without requiring people to change their lifestyle, without requiring people to adopt new behaviors. It really is in building the opportunity to build something really better. And it's something that we really, as a home builder, used to our own selfish circumstance, is the ability to reach out and to talk to consumers about live better, get more. And we've helped people understand that it's the things that you don't see in building a home that translate into getting a better home, being able to differentiate that good, better, best in the choices so that you create a sophisticated buyer that can choose a better home, that can choose a more efficient home, that can start making choices towards zero net energy. The challenges obviously are, buying a new home, choosing a home is incredibly complex when it comes to mortgages, and stop buying anything expensive so it doesn't screw up your underwriting. And a realtor who's sold homes for 20 years that's helping them buy, that now we're introducing all of these new technologies and opportunities to the marketplace that they've never had to understand, and therefore they're intimidated by oftentimes, and so they don't introduce and reinforce these opportunities to help consumers. And then you mix that in with Madison Avenue marketing that has co-opted eco-friendly, green, earth-wise statements to sell toothpaste and toothbrushes and T-shirts and blue jeans. And so we've really jaded the public on whether or not these are things that substantively are responsible for the planet and substantively make their lives better. And, from a home builder's perspective, when I design a home with innovative insulation and new building constructions and different types of windows, we have a significant effort to educate code officials and educate our trade base to execute those things. I will say, for those of you who are facing this challenge, it's amazingly rewarding to go into a trade room, bring everybody in their competition in and say, we're going to build zero net energy homes, this is the path we're on, and half the room empties out. Because those are the trades and the consultants and the partnerships that will hold you back, that will constantly be an anchor you have to drag along your way. Once you inspire your partnerships in building, from engineers to consultants to trades, and the people that stay and say, dig in, and they want to be a part of what the future looks like, you now have partnerships that help you along the way, that understand that they're going to have to go through change, but on the other end, they're going to have a set of skills and a business strategy that's about the future challenges, which creates growth opportunity for them, which creates opportunity for their employees to be more proud of what they do, and greatly strengthens and expands their business parameters. And as people start to understand that green isn't about necessarily saving the world, green is about doing better. A realtor who can better understand energy efficiency and zero net energy and sustainability and guide consumers through that gets better referrals. A builder that can incorporate new construction techniques and new materials to make their home more energy efficient creates business opportunities that other tradespeople aren't competitive with. And so all of these things really, while initially challenges, create opportunities for those who get into this arena to differentiate and long-term step out and have that unique selling proposition as they achieve something different, something special in the marketplace. And always the challenge has been, not as much in California but throughout the country, is utilities and states and municipalities and the federal government have programs and funds that get set up that are pretty short term. And it's difficult to say this 5-year project financially justifies itself because of these incentive programs when you can't count on the incentive programs. And I'm aware that there's an awful lot of associations and trades trying to stabilize those incentives, trying to understand the value to utilities, understand the value to consumers, understand the value to the builders, so that those incentives can be stabilized to really promote significant volume change towards really efficient zero net energy buildings.
So CR, we've got a couple of questions right
Happy
now. So someone, I was actually interested in hearing what the definition of net zero that you're operating with is.
I'm going to cover that in 4 slides, but I'll answer it now because the question was asked. So zero net energy to me, and I've heard the debate and I've decided to ignore it and just decide what I think I would tell my grandma it is a complete offset of the kilowatt energy demand. So for Meritage homes only, when I do zero net energy, I look at the residual kilowatt hours of energy modeled for an average family of 4 for that building for a year, and I design a renewable energy system that makes that amount of energy in a year. I do not try to offset natural gas. I do not try to offset construction energy. I do not try to offset community energy demands like stoplights and park lights and street lights. There is a tremendous amount of detail and a lot of people within the zero net energy space that have been arguing what that definition is, and it's probably one of the things that makes the simpleness of getting to Z&E more complex because nobody's sure what zero is. For me, because this is an individual home with an individual consumer that I'm selling a zero net energy home to, I make that home zero energy. And the reason I do that is, 1, just the simplicity of the message. 2 is the reality that if you're offsetting things like the BTU demand from natural gas, you're actually creating energy above what you need that you still have to buy natural gas against, and that energy the utilities buy back at a lower rate than the net metering 1-to-1 ratio that they exchange energy with when you're neutral or positive. And so for all those reasons, it became a very pragmatic, keep it simple, stupid approach to zero net energy. Zero is 0 kilowatt hours on an annualized basis. Any other questions before I move along?
Yes, actually, just a couple more. Someone was interested in hearing where the source was for your Consumer's Choice survey.
The Consumer's Choice survey, what I can do is I can source that. There was actually a citation that got cropped off the edge of this. I will source that, and when this webinar gets made available publicly, I'll have a footnote to that. I don't remember it off. I do remember it was like 4,200 surveyed new home buyers, and it was really statistically relevant.
Okay. And then, let's see, also, what's your benchmark for KW consumption for an average, in quotes, home for parents and 2 children staying at home?
So I don't get in the middle of any of that on purpose. I absolutely defer to the U.S. DOE average energy demand statistics because it's so messy, and I've actually was going to broach that later in the presentation. It's so messy to get into individual lifestyle choices and try to accurately predict those. So the U.S. DOE has really good statistical information. The BIOS and ResNet and all the energy softwares out there allow you to get to included plug loads, which I very much believe in, that you include the total energy demand, which means you recognize people have TVs and cell phones. So I like BEOP for its ability to capture the full energy demand, but I do not overly manipulate that based on an individual consumer. If they have a more conservative lifestyle, if they have a more aggressive lifestyle, I design the 0 to 0, and if they say, hey, add some more because I homeschool my kids or I want to plug in an EV car, then we'll say, fine, well, an EV car is 2.5 more kilowatt panels, we'll put those on. But 0 is the way we market, the way we talk about it, the way we define it is absolutely based on U.S. DOE defined average family for energy consumption needs, because otherwise it is a one-off and it becomes incredibly energy intensive as in body hours to design and do guess lifestyle. And no matter what you're doing, you're swagging that number. And promising somebody 0 based on their particular family is a really dangerous thing to do. One more?
Can you hear me?
Just now I can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, there's another question here. How does your definition of net zero compare to what is supposedly going to be required in all new California homes by 2020?
That would, I'm sorry, I hate to laugh at the bureaucracy of California, but that would require the bureaucracy of California figuring that out for themselves. One of the great things about being involved with the Net Zero Energy Coalition is the ability to influence those governmental processes and to have a voice at the table, because I do think it needs to be simple. I do think it needs to be realistic. I do think utilities need to be brought in, and their kind of load shape and buying and selling of energy, all that has to be considered programmatically as we define what 0 is. But to the best of my knowledge, I am not aware that that debate has been settled and that 0 has been defined by the state of California for their 2020 goals. But I do believe the mainstream option is very much aligned with what I described, which is a 0 energy without trying to offset BTUs from compressed natural gas and without trying to offset any community-level energy demand. It's strictly based on a statistical average family of 4 and their demands less the efficiencies incorporated into the building, equal residual energy demands, and then a straight multiplier based on how many annual kilowatts the solar panel produces to offset that.
Okay, and then I'm just going to do one last one from this bunch, which is, let's see, was your rating of 2.5 kW panels needed for a plug-in car or an electric car, Prius or Leaf? Was that
that ends up being based on the commuting distance of the person who bought the car. So that's a back calculation that do not use as a standard. Whenever you do that, a Prius actually consumes a little bit less energy because it's a plug-in, but it does use its gas engine a little bit more often than a straight EV car. So you would, based on the vehicle you are buying and the vehicle miles that you drive on average for commuting and for lifestyle, you would back that into an annualized load and then build a solar system for that load. That is a very wide range based on people's lifestyle, and if somebody is going to build energy to offset an electric vehicle or a combined hybrid vehicle, I would recommend they do that as a one-off based on the family lifestyle and the vehicle chosen.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and continue the presentation, and I'll interrupt when there are more questions.
Good enough. So we were talking about how important it was to align what is simple, which is making a home achieve 0, with what the challenge is, which is making understood. And when I get into marketing, I get into consumer engagement and the lessons I've learned, which I'll talk a little bit more about as I go through this, I kind of default to fundamental psychology of people, and what we're asking people to do, an average home buyer, is to change. We're asking them to adopt a new way of buying the most expensive thing they buy, their homes. And so when you think about it as change management comes down to kind of three things. Making people aware they can have better, that there's a choice out there. Making them aware that it's true, so that third party, that's why you hear me keep defaulting to the US EPA on things and the standards and practices, because it needs to not be crazy Sierra heroes making something up, but here's a standard, here is a practice, here is third-party values, here is financial statistics that have dependability in order for people to start incorporating that change into their behavior. And then when I say monetization, what I mean by that is you need to be able to give people the scale. So if good is building a home to the new 2012 code, which reduces its energy demand, or that in California, the new Title 24, and better is voluntarily adopting Energy Star or USGBC LEED or some other voluntary energy efficiency program, and best is zero, what does it look like for initial cost, and what does it look like in monthly reduced operating costs, and what are those paybacks, what are those ROIs, right? Give people the tools to see very transparently what they're investing in and what is investing in it because it's the right thing to do, and what is investing in it because it's selfish and it pays you back every month in reduced operating costs above your financial investment. So when I think about creating tools for the average buyer to be inspired to change, we go pretty over the top. And if you've been to a Meritage community or you're interested in this, I suggest you do. We build these learning centers in all of our communities throughout the country, and it really, it's a memory point that our sales agents use to help consumers understand they should have better. That just because something looks the same doesn't mean it works the same. And Zero is so much about improving the function of buildings, improving the function of homes, making things work right and efficiently, that helping people understand what's behind the walls and what's up in their attics and how windows work and how appliances work inspires them to make a better choice, inspires them against what I started off this talk with, which is that the average person doesn't think there's anything broken. And if you can demonstrate, hey, in your normal house, your air conditioning leaks out in 20 minutes and it's 150 degrees above your head and your windows are letting through 140-degree temperatures, they start to understand that they don't have to accept that. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I currently live in Phoenix because I learned that I didn't have to accept snow, and I never looked back. One of the other pieces, and I've alluded to, is the need to finance, to create scales, and this is just a standard energy-efficient home that we build around the country, but the average buyer thinks that, if you cut your utility bill in half, you're going to save $115 a month, and that's not that big of a deal. They don't understand that scope, that over that 30-year mortgage, that little $115 is $65,000. In a zero-net energy home, that number would be $140,000. And getting people to understand that these small investments and, okay, wow, the renewable energy solar system I put in may cost $35,000. Well, I can't imagine investing that, because they don't appreciate that system's, along with everything else, is going to save them $100,000 in operating costs. And those are the fundamental changes, because they don't think anything's broken. They're not looking for solutions to a problem they don't know they have. And so creating things like these comparisons where here's an average cost to heat and cool and run your hot water and light it, and here's what the new homes are because Title 24 or the 2009 code or 2012 code is driving efficiencies. And as you add renewable energy, you start not only drastically making your home more efficient, you start offsetting the demand. So this is, this was a home that had a small solar system, and that combined with energy efficiencies cut 2/3 of the normal operating cost out of the home. And so people start understanding for that small investment in renewable energy towards zero, they're saving tens of thousands of dollars in their operating costs, and that zero is actually something that can be really selfish as you leverage renewable energy to eliminate bills that they didn't realize that they could eliminate. And so when we first started doing this, I was asked to talk about what was risky and what did we do innovative. And the risk was we created a solution for a problem people didn't know they have. And that's the challenge of Zero today, is that, you know, people think solar, even though it's come down so much in price, is still expensive, that you don't recover your investment, or that they can't, that the utilities for some how will stop accepting, you know, the energy back to the grid, or that you know, that it's just for rich people, or it's just for, you know, people that drive Priuses and wear Birkenstocks. And so that sophistication was our big challenge, that we wanted to go to the average buyer as a production builder and say, let's inspire you to have the best house you could have, more than you even know you want today. And it took us first drinking our own Kool-Aid, aligning not just our salespeople, but our purchasing groups and our construction groups and our accountants and our marketing and our sales and our executives to the opportunity that better is better, that if you have the best choice, people will choose it more often if you do a good job helping them make that choice, which is a good selfish business decision. That market capture rate and, you know, inspired consumers and referrals and recommendations are a really smart thing to do when you're selling somebody their most expensive thing they're ever going to buy. And so our program started with the fundamentals I've talked about, really looking at how can we most cost-effectively reduce the energy demand of a house until we got all the way to what the DOE is now calling solar ready, that we've reduced the waste and we've made such an efficient envelope and with great appliances and great lighting that the only cost-effective remainder is just to step up and put a renewable energy and then very simply drive that all the way to zero. And that's really the path we took. And you know, and the buyers, you know, get bombarded with all sorts of messaging around this, and we really wanted to pull it back into, here's your total monthly cost of operation. Here's your principal, interest, taxes, insurance. Here's your utility bill. Here's your maintenance bill. Let us show you how to reduce that so you can have money to buy a bigger house, to buy a bigger yard, to buy shinier things for your house, to go on nicer vacations. Really bring it back to that average family, to the whip from what's in it for me. How can we personalize the opportunity to choose better? I'm looking at the clock, and I know I need to get moving along. So if you've got questions on this, we can certainly talk a little bit more about lessons learned as I wrap up. But as I'm about to refer to, the challenge left is the industry, helping realtors not be afraid of innovation, but to help them reinforce this get better, get more message, helping the appraisal process. If you're going to put on a $30,000 solar system, and you're only going to be in your house 5 years, you need some assurance that the value, the residual value of that renewable energy is going to be reflected when they appraise, and then underwrite. If a zero net energy home eliminates $140,000 of utility bills, today that's not reflected as a benefit in your underwriting, in your ratio, and how much you have to earn in order to buy. There is a move today, it started in California and it's now national, to change underwriting to look at the monthly cost of operation so that you get a significant benefit from putting in efficiency, from upgrading your home, from building a better home, and from putting in renewable energy. It starts with this, and anybody that's interested in the space, I highly recommend this as a requirement. It's the AI, it's just been updated to 820.04. It's the Residential Green Energy Efficient Addendum. The first 2 pages are features. It's windows and insulation and appliances and SEER rating, and the last 2 pages are renewable energy, wind and geothermal and solar, and what is the residual warranty, and what is the total kilowatts, and what is the net present value of that energy. And it's all designed to just create value back to the buyer, to drive the benefits that sophisticated engineers and designers and architects understand are there back to the average buyer, to reinforce that solar really is a selfish thing to do. Within that, this is the feed from Sandia Labs. Sandia Labs created a portal to put in all of the information on azimuth and size, and to get this arm's length third-party validation for this is the value of the energy this system will make over its warranty life. The mortgage underwriting is also moving along well. In the Sheehan-Portman bill right now is the Senate Bill 1737, bipartisan, Republican and Democrat support, and it's designed, it's called the SAVE Act, Sensible Accounting Value Energy. It's designed to require that when you underwrite a home, you recognize the benefits of building the home above required code. And so if you're going to reduce the operating cost by $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, that creates a benefit to the buyer by taking that money and reducing the assumed debt load of operating, reduces it and allows them more money to buy more house. And that will help people afford to roll in solar when they buy a home, afford to retrofit their home to put in energy efficient features, and to truly be reinforced in the value if their realtor's telling them about it and their appraiser's telling them about it and their banker's telling them about it, that yes, there's $100,000 in value here. They finally can start making a sophisticated decision to move forward. And in the last 5 minutes, yes, ma'am.
Sorry, just before we move on to this next slide, a couple of more on the technical end here.
Sure.
People are interested to hear how tight the houses are that you guys are building and how you achieve that tightness.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of what we're able to achieve. Meritage was the first production builder to go to polyurethane spray foam insulation nationally. We do it everywhere, every time. And so that air barrier in all of our walls and in our attics greatly reduces uncontrolled air filtration. So a normal home's natural air exchange is 2 to 3. When we measure ours, so that's air changes per hour. When we do our natural air exchanges, we are down to less than 1/10 of a natural air exchange per hour, which if people are used to ACH 50 numbers, so the fan-driven numbers, we get ACH 50 numbers less than 2. So we're usually around 1.2, 1.4. So we basically are 2% of the uncontrolled air movement of a conventionally built home. Now, in California, they've got a ventilation standard, ASHRAE 62.2, that requires you to bring in about 6 air exchanges a day is how it works out. We've done that nationally because it's a health-based standard, and we build so tight we want to make sure that we retain the energy efficiency, but we also make sure we maintain the comfort and the health of our homes as well.
Okay, and also would like to know if you use HRVs or ERVs.
In the climates we build in, we don't, and the reason is ERVs and HRVs are great in cold climates. When you put them in warm climates, especially warm, humid climates, they reduce the sensible heat but don't efficiently reduce the latent heat. And what that is for the layman is we're taking the temperature down through an ERV, but the humidity still comes in. Well, the humidity is removed by the temperature allowing the air conditioner to run and pulling that humid air across coils where it condenses and gets out of the air. So there's been a tremendous difficulty in hot and humid climates where we're making our homes so efficient through the lights and the windows reducing heat and the great insulation that when we bring in fresh air, the humidity doesn't have a mechanical way to be removed. And HRVs or ERVs actually exacerbate that problem. So if we're doing a number of technologies to fix that, but the long and the short is you need to either bring in dry air through selective fresh air ventilation, or you need to dehumidify that fresh air. If anybody's interested in that, feel free to contact me after this webinar. We've struggled with this problem for 2 years and think we've got some really innovative cutting-edge solutions to handle air quality ventilation proactively and really energy efficiency without using ERVs.
Okay, and then on to another topic here. If someone's interested in hearing what your suggestions are to help with the appraisal process.
The first thing I do is if an appraisal process comes back and they haven't used AI 820.04, I reject it as incompetent. The appraisal has to demonstrate that they're able to appraise the unique features of the property. And all they're doing is a comp analysis based on square footage and zip code. They're not demonstrating the ability to appraise unique value, and I throw it out. And that is a great feedback to the appraiser. If they can't competently use AI 820, then they can't properly assess the unique features of the home they're looking at.
Okay, and then one last comment about the dehumidification, which is it better and cost-effective to use a dehumidifier instead of a higher tonnage AC?
No. A dehumidifier is an energy pig. It is very, very energy intensive to dehumidify through a dehumidifier, where you get the in-parallel benefits of dehumidification through AC. The challenge there is the AC is not running in the spring and the fall, where the humidity still exists. And so the AC doesn't handle shoulder months where a dehumidifier would. When we've gone with dehumidification strategies, we give up a ton of energy efficiency because they're such energy pigs. So it generally, being a really energy efficient builder, angers my consumers after they've drank the Kool-Aid of energy efficiency to put this big energy pig of a dehumidifier. What I really recommend is some selective controls and only dehumidifying when you have to. And there's some great resources, and I will be publishing a bunch of things out for the industry on that, because we've learned the hard way by doing it wrong. And like I said, anybody with those specific issues, it's a little outside the scope of this talk, but I'd be very happy to help.
Okay, and then that's it for questions. We have had a couple of comments, and people are egging you on to dive into some of the more technical details about your home specifically,
okay.
How you them and everything. So
let me do that, because I want to be sensitive to the people's time, since I know we're about to run out. For me, the first principle and the philosophy is it's got to be the right thing to do, and I call it sustainable sustainability, because it really does have to be selfish, right? You've got to create value. It's got to be good for consumers. It's got to be good for utilities. It's got to be good for economic policy. And the great news is Zero today is that you can stop and help a consumer, you build or rehab an efficient building, add renewable energy, and demonstrate that investment is less than the cost they'll save. And that's the really exciting thing about where we're at is, the checked off things. LEDs have finally come to the point where they're cost-benefit work. Real efficient air conditioners have finally gotten to the point where they work out. Heat pump water heaters, for the incremental cost to put them in, they save a lot of energy that pay for themselves. So getting our waste down has been really good, because the technology has finally been pulled from fringe to mainstream so that it's cost-effective. I will give you some resources, because I will not have enough time to talk about it, but some resources for all those nuts and bolts on the things that work. The next piece for me is looking at how do we really align everybody's interests, which is thermal mass and flat load shapes, and behavior and political will. And driving those sorts of benefits is really what's going to bring Z&E into 1% take rate on the population to, if you don't have Z&E, why are you wasting your money? And that's the transition I think we're right at the precipice of making. And I'm going to skip through a lot of these. Some of this is just reinforcement for the consumer-facing optics, which is, zero net energy homes needs to be about the opportunity to live better, not selling people the technical widgets and all the things that we who are involved in this space get caught up in being smart and being refined, but getting the message distilled down to it's an opportunity for people to live better. For resources, you're welcome to reach out to me. The U.S. EPA has great tools to get your building working right for the Energy Star Indoor Air Plus WaterSense program. The Passive House program is great. It does architecturally impact your design. There are plenty of buyers who will not be willing to do that, but it is good tools and resources to steal and borrow from, great ways to reduce the load. The US DOE Energy.gov has great tools. In fact, they've got an entire database of blueprints and technologies and methodology to get you to zero net energy. They've got a whole new program called Zero Net Energy Buildings, and it's a database of 3. Anything the US DOE has ever sponsored makes it public property. And so all of their research is available in turnkey. So if you want to build a zero net energy home today, you go to this web page and you will get all the tools and all the resources and all the connections to do it really easily. And if you're looking for community, there's tons of community. One of the ones I really like nationally is just this education-based EVA that has conferences to get out and promote energy efficiency, work with people struggling with the same thing. And there's great opportunity, like everybody that is sponsoring this program, to all collaborate and work together so that we can get to the point where Z&E is the least of our troubles. It's just the way we build. Because quite honestly, if I was going to build a home for my grandma, I'd build it zero. Not because it's special or she's technically refined, but because it's the best thing for her for durability, for total cost, and for future resale value of that home. Any more questions now that I've taken everybody's time?
Yeah, I think we got one here, and please, anyone else on the line who's got questions, please put them in. One question we've got here is dehumidification important in the microclimates of the San Francisco Bay Area, Bay and Coastal Valley?
So in the Bay Area on the coast, it really depends on the sensitivity of the buyer. The Bay Area, a lot of the cold feeling is because of the dampness. So if the buyer is willing to invest in the energy to dehumidify, I think it improves the comfort of the home. I would approach it in that climate by reducing the air movement. If you can seal the home up, you have a really good shot at not constantly bringing humidity in the outside environment. And then, during peak heat, during the daytime, that AC is going to really drop the humidity down. You can put dehumidistats, switches in the kitchens and in the showers to make sure it's removing that humidity so you can get to a relative indoor air humidity of 40 to 50, which is going to feel a lot more comfortable in San Francisco and not as cold in the cold and not as hot and sticky in the warm. So if you can do it energy efficiently through good sealing, good ventilation practices, I really recommend it. But to do that in parallel with the requirement in California to bring in ASHRAE 62 ventilation, I would recommend that ventilation be run through either a little tiny apartment dehumidifier package that companies like Air have, or that it's smart programmed with a humidistat that it's bringing in the ventilation during the least humid parts of the day.
Also, a couple of attendees want to know if you're going to put your contact information up.
Absolutely. Let me see if I have it in the next slide. There's my contact information.
Okay. I don't think we've got any other additional questions here. I think that's it.
Okay. I will send you control of this then.
Okay. Okay, so let me pop this back in here. Okay, so here's again my contact information, Shilpa's contact information. We will be sending out the slide deck and possibly may be able to make the recording available. Oh, I just actually got another question, CR. Would you mind answering it?
Hello?
It's what is the customer's cost premium to go from your current standard to full net zero?
It depends on the square footage of the house and the climate they build in. Obviously, in California, with a milder climate, there's significantly less heating and cooling load by the coast. So it can be done. In a small house, we can get to zero with 4 kilowatts, and right now, so a kilowatt, we're less than $4 a watt of installed solar, so that's less than $16,000 of renewable energy to get to zero. For a big McMansion that's 5,000 square feet that we build in the center of Phoenix where it's 106 degrees today, that house could require 12 kilowatts, still at $4 a watt of installed solar. So it does is lifestyle, it is size, but it is super cost effective because the energy for that little tiny house on the coast or that big McMansion in the middle of the desert, the energy offsets are more in cost to operate than that solar system costs that buyer if they roll it into the mortgage. So whether or not there's great utilities incentives like California or no utilities incentives like in Texas, in every case I've seen solar energy pen out, and the bigger the panel, the bigger the array, the more cost effective it usually is to install it. And so zero net energy tends to be the most cost effective solution for anybody that's got the ability to invest up front because their monthly costs are less. And obviously if you use the appraisal process right, it improves resale value at that investment level or greater.
All right, and then just one last request. Someone wants us to put back up the slide that had the website with all the information about building NetZero. So I'm just going to switch the presentation back to you, and then we'll just leave that up, and we'll close the webinar down in a few minutes after we presume people will be able to copy that information down.
Be happy to.
Okay. Great. So there's that resource there. So we really appreciate you guys joining us. Huge thank you to CR and Shilpa for putting this together and working with us. And if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to, hopefully you got my email earlier. Send us a message. Also, anytime you want to contact Build It Green, we're training@builditgreen.org. And we appreciate you guys joining us today. Thanks very much.